My name's Louise Jarvis. I'm a conference interpreter and trainer at the University of Bath in the UK, and I've been asked to talk to you today about numbers. Now, numbers are crucial pieces of information, which it's important to convey with perfect accuracy. And yet, numbers are difficult. Everyone finds them difficult, even the most seasoned interpreters. There are three reasons why. The first is an increased cognitive load. Numbers are very information dense. They provide a lot of information very concisely. And when a speaker uses a number, the interpreter has to do several things all at once. First, the interpreter has to translate the number, which is not always straightforward, particularly if you're dealing with, for example, French numbers like 97, which require a certain amount of mental arithmetic. 4 times 20 plus 17, oh yes, 97. Secondly, the interpreter has to get the order of magnitude right. Was it 1,000 or million? And thirdly, they have to reproduce the noun that the figure refers to. To quote Roderick Jones's example, was it cane sugar, beet sugar, refined sugar, or raw sugar? The cognitive load's further increased by the fact that numbers tend to be accompanied by additional information, such as units of measurement. Was it dollars or euro, tons or kilograms? Dates, and whether the figure's gone up or down, whether it's approximate or precise. The second reason why numbers are difficult is that they're hard to predict. You might well be able to predict a speaker's argument, but it will not be at all straightforward to predict the precise figures that will be cited in support of that argument. And the third reason why I think that numbers are difficult is that they disrupt our flow. What I mean by that is that we've got into a nice rhythm of listening, processing, analysing, and then either taking notes in consecutive or speaking in simultaneous. And then suddenly a list of numbers comes along and we have to drop everything to either write them down or say them. And that's because while we can hold one or two simple figures in our short-term memory while we note or interpret the rest of the sentence, as soon as there are 2 or 3 more complex figures, we're not able to do so. So how can we overcome these difficulties? Here are 5 suggestions. My first suggestion is about preparation. When you're preparing for an assignment, make sure you prepare the figures. There's always a temptation when preparing vocabulary for an assignment to focus on nouns. Now, admittedly, figures are difficult to predict, as I said before, but it is possible to do some preparation. For example, say you're preparing for a meeting about a particular piece of legislation. Write down the number of the regulation, directive, or resolution concerned, and either memorize it or have it to hand so that you can read it out when it's mentioned. Recognizing that number is going to be so much easier than decoding it. There may actually be several related pieces of legislation, all with their individual numbers, and you can note them all down. Or say you're going to be in a meeting about trade in particular products. You might not be able to prepare the quantities of the products that will be discussed. But what you can prepare are the names of the products and the units that go with them. For example, will it be barrels or bushels, quintals or troy ounces? That will help to reduce your cognitive load and give you more capacity to process the number itself. And of course, background knowledge about a subject can help with orders of magnitude. If you're in a meeting about sugar, and the background documents contain graphs showing fluctuations in the price of sugar, notice what order of magnitude is used. This will enable you to check your interpretation against your common sense. Francesca Maria Fritella has done some interesting research on preparing to interpret numbers, which is well worth a look. Suggestion number 2. Once in the booth in a simultaneous meeting, one way of dealing with isolated figures is to reformulate your sentence to enable you to say the figure first so that you don't need to remember it for too long. For example, the speaker says, "Scallop catches in the English Channel totaled 11,448 tonnes." But the interpreter can say, 11,448 tonnes of scallops were caught in the English Channel. However, and this is my third suggestion, if you're faced with a whole list of figures, it's advisable to ease the pressure on your brain by writing them down. And that goes for both simultaneous and consecutive. What's more, you can practice writing down those pesky 97 and the like so that they become automatic. It's useful to consider here when and how you should write numbers down. The answer to when is as soon as you hear them, in both simultaneous and consecutive. And of course, in consecutive, you can go back and fill in the surrounding information in your notes afterwards. How do you write them down? For languages like German, it makes sense to write them down backwards. Instead of writing down 26 as 2 and 6, you write down 6 and 2. And you can save yourself time by having unambiguous abbreviations for the different orders of magnitude. Probably something like K for 1,000, M for million, and B for billion. The advantage of writing numbers down in simultaneous is that you can then read them back when you need to slot them into your sentence. It helps you to maintain your flow. A further advantage with writing numbers down is that this is something your boothmate may be able to help you with if they also work from the source language in question. Suggestion number 4. When you're recording increases or decreases, ensure that you have an unambiguous way of distinguishing between increases or decreases from, to, and by. For example, say that the price of Durham wheat has increased to 267.8 euros per tonne. You can put the figure at the top of your arrow. Or the price of wheat has increased by 1.7%. In that case, you would put the figure next to your arrow. Or in combination, the price of white sugar has increased by 1.2% from 328 euros per tonne to 332 euros per tonne. You can incorporate dates into the same schema. Another example, the unemployment rate fell by 0.6% between July 2020 and July 2021. Using this system, you can see at a glance what the status of your figures is. My final suggestion is to use your analysis of the idea that the number's part of to work out what the function of the number is. Because all numbers are important, but some are more important than others. For example, the number of a directive or a patent needs to be absolutely spot on, otherwise the listeners will be confused. But sometimes numbers are just illustrative of a broader point, and it's not crucial to render the precise figure. Rather, you can be of greater service to the listener by analysing the idea and giving an approximation of the figure to illustrate the speaker's point. Let me conclude with a seasonal example. Say that the speaker's making the point that demand for hot cross buns is much greater around Easter. They might say that 500,000 hot cross buns were sold 2 weeks ago, but that only 256,341 were sold last week. The interpreter, having reproduced the speaker's main point about demand, could say that 500,000 hot cross buns were sold 2 weeks ago, but only just over half as many last week. So there you have it, 5 suggestions to help with interpreting numbers.